Say what I told you to say, otherwise I can't promise I won't let something slip that'll make things ugly for you. That was the first time Mike laid the threat out openly, without even a hint of disguise. I sat in the car. He stood outside the window, the familiar contempt and sense of control pressing toward me like a wall. He thought I would cave. Thought I was still the person he could use whenever he wanted. But he didn't know that from this moment on, he had given me the beginning of revenge. Then he tapped the roof twice and said, "Get out. We need to talk for a few minutes." I didn't move. He circled to the passenger side, pulled the door open, and sat inside, carrying that unmistakable forcefulness that left no room for refusal. "Andrew, don't play dumb. You know why I'm here." His voice was low, almost pressed down. "This weekend, I need you to tell Claire that the two of us are going to Portland for a matchmaking event. The startup fun thing. If she asks for details, you say exactly what I told you. Word for word." I asked, "Where are you going this time?" He answered lightly, with that familiar and infuriating sense of entitlement, "Seattle. I'll be with Talia for 2 days." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "She's still taking classes at your gym? Private sessions?" His lips curled up. "You know she has a boyfriend, but the kid can't control her." "Not my fault." I rubbed my forehead. "Your wife is 6 months pregnant." "I know," he said, like he was talking about the weather. "Pregnant women are emotionally unstable, that's why I need a breather. Besides, she won't find out. You just need to say one sentence." He took out a slip of paper with 2 lines of text written on it and pushed it toward me. "Meeting location, organizer name. If Claire asks, you just read it. Don't improvise." My hand hovered in the air, not taking it. Mike looked up at me, patience thinning. "You're my best friend, aren't you? How many years has it been? How much effort have I put into you? Bringing you onto projects, that was me. All the trouble you caused me, I didn't blame you. Now I'm asking for a tiny favor. Is that too much? You call those troubles?" I asked. He laughed once. "Come on, don't do this. I know your life hasn't gone smoothly these years. I've never held that against you. I'm giving you a chance to prove your loyalty." I was silent for a few seconds, then asked, "Will Claire call to confirm?" "Of course." He shrugged. "Just tell her you're busy, or that I'm in your office prepping materials. She won't dig deeper." "What if she asks for the itinerary? The hotel? The fund's name? The attendee list?" "I've prepared everything." He took out his phone and opened a long memo. I said, "Don't improvise." I stared at the 3-page long list of fabricated information. I didn't know how long it took him to construct these lies, but clearly, no one is better than him at turning deception into a routine. He shoved his phone back into his pocket. "You don't slip up, I won't get screwed. I don't get screwed, you won't get screwed. Got it?" Our 2 seconds of eye contact made something painfully clear. He no longer saw me as a friend. He saw me as a risk mitigation strategy. I finally asked, "You want my help this time because you're afraid you'll mess up? Or because you know if I don't help, you'll pin something on me?" Mike straightened up, the smile fading. His voice dropped further, sharper. "Andrew, you know. Claire never thought you were particularly reliable. If I told her you've been unstable lately, stressed out, maybe saying inconsistent things, she might just believe it." He paused. "You want to bet? Bet she'll believe you over me? You sure?" I didn't answer. The wind in the parking lot was strong. He shut the door, sealing the 2 of us inside the confined space. "You just need to say one sentence. We're going to Portland this weekend. That's it. If you dare say anything else." He held up 2 fingers. "I can make things bad for you. You know that." I slowly slipped the paper into my coat pocket. He saw the movement and mistook it as my surrender, letting out a relieved exhale as he clapped my shoulder. "See? I knew you were smart." When he got out, he said, "We grew up together. You wouldn't hurt me." He walked away, steps light, like he had just dealt with a minor inconvenience. And he had no idea that while he thought I'd help him cover the lie, he had already handed me the perfect start to revenge. That night, after he left, I set the slip of paper on my kitchen counter and stared at those 2 rigid lines for half an hour. The wind outside was strong, the window frames trembled softly like a constant tapping reminder. I sat at the small round kitchen table. The apartment was quiet. My phone buzzed on the tabletop. It was Claire. "Mike said you 2 will be in Portland this weekend?" Her voice sounded careful, as if worried she might bother me. He mentioned it, I answered. She was silent for a moment. Will you be busy? I wanted to prepare a little something for you too, but I don't know what hotel you're staying at. I looked at the slip of paper. Didn't speak. The paper listed a hotel Mike made up, but my mouth offered only a vague, meaningless reply, I'll check the itinerary later. Okay. She exhaled lightly, having finally asked but still left with nothing. When she hung up, I remained frozen in the same position, as if nailed to the chair. The kitchen fell into an uncanny stillness, so quiet I could hear the refrigerator compressor hum as it kicked on. This quiet wasn't calm. It was a weight, thick enough to compress the air. I suddenly realized this wasn't the first time. Mike had been like this for more than a decade. Always expecting someone else to clean up after him. Back in college, he'd say, I've got your back. Just don't screw up my stuff. The first lie I told for him was sophomore year. He got drunk, made a scene on campus, cracked a glass wall at the basketball court. Security called me over. He held my long-lost student ID like it was leverage and said, just say you did it. You won't have to pay. I'll fix it. Just say it was you. I didn't think. I just said, okay. Even later, when I got reprimanded by the dean's office, he didn't show up. He joined a big tech company. I went to a small studio. Sometimes he told me, work harder, or when I toss you a bone later, don't complain about losing face. I laughed it off, pretending it didn't sting. But that sentence was more humiliating than any insult. Mike liked keeping me in a shadow he could see. Help me, from him always meant. Take the blame. Cover for me. Be my shield. And every time I gave in, it reaffirmed his power. The next afternoon he sent another string of texts, practically commands. Remember the meeting name? She might ask who's attending. Just say it's the two of us. Don't mention I'm leaving early. Say we're flying back Monday morning. Staring at the messages, I remembered something from 3 years ago. When I was new at my company, still in my probation period, he got drunk on my couch and told me. Relax. If you get fired, I'll put in a good word for you. It wasn't reassurance. It was charity. A reminder. You depend on me. He even kept that promise once. I was falsely accused of leaking a design draft. Mike went to see the supervisor and said. I recommended him. He wouldn't do this. The supervisor believed him. I thanked him. He just said lightly. Just remember I helped you. Remember? Like a debt. Friday evening, right when I got off work, I got a notification. Your flight reservation has been confirmed. I froze. Mike had used my information to book a return flight from Portland. Time and seat all arranged. I stood at my desk, staring at the email. Not angry, not panicked, just feeling something heavy, like a stone lodged in my stomach. Mike called immediately. Got the email? He asked. Why did you use my info to book the flight? Don't start with me. What if she checks your inbox? Why are you always behind? I think these things through better than you think for yourself. I rubbed my forehead and leaned against the desk. When are you flying? Tomorrow at 8. I'll stay in Bellevue with Talia. He said it as casually as giving a status report. Just don't screw up. If we both show up Monday, she'll never suspect. I stayed silent. He thought I was hesitating, so his tone hardened. Andrew, you're in your 30s. Stop arguing with me. Saying one sentence, is it really that hard? The office was empty. The cold light stretched my shadow on the floor, small, thin, pressed into a corner. He continued. I've helped you so many times. If you don't do what I say, I can't guarantee. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. I know, I answered quietly. He hung up. The office felt wide and hollow, ringing in my ears. Saturday morning, he sent one last text. Boarding now. Remember the details. In the same minute, Claire sent a voice message. Andrew, if you two arrive in Portland, let me know. I couldn't sleep last night. I just want to make sure you're both safe. Her voice was so soft, like she was suppressing something. I sat at my desk for a long time, not playing the audio. My phone lit and dimmed again. The light hit my knuckles and suddenly reminded me of something old. Senior year, when my father died, I called Mike from the hospital corridor. I might need to be away for a while, I told him. He was at a party. The background was loud. He answered, "Don't cause trouble now. The company wants me to recommend someone. I put your name down. If you disappear, I'll just recommend someone else." I remember standing at the end of that hallway, speechless. The suffocation I felt then was no different from now. For years, I'd accepted that in any storm, Mike only cared about himself. But this time, he wanted me to lie to a woman 6 months pregnant. A lie that would take away her ability to breathe at night. The room was quiet. So quiet I could hear the distant sound of car wheels on the street outside. And I suddenly realized. Silence corners a person more effectively than shouting ever could. I picked up my phone and texted Claire. "Can I stop by? Are you home?" She replied instantly. "Yes." The doors open. The curtains in her living room were half drawn. The dim light illuminated only the area near the sofa. Claire sat there hugging a cushion, chin resting on top of it. She looked like she hadn't slept all night. Her eyes were red, as if covered with a thin mist. As soon as I walked in, she asked, "Is he with you now?" Her voice was so soft it sounded like it might shatter. I shook my head. "Stayed where I was." "Then where is he?" Her fingers clenched the corner of the cushion, knuckles turning white from the pressure. I could still feel Mike's shadow pressing at my back, urging me to repeat the lie. The lie I'd told for him countless times. But this time, I stood there, looking at her, and said nothing. She exhaled slowly. "If you don't say it, then I'll assume it's what I've suspected." A breeze passed outside, making the doorframe gently creak. Claire lifted her head. Her eyes were red, but lit with something like fire. "Andrew, you weren't like this before. You never feared telling the truth." Her tone was calm, but it pressed down on the entire room. She went on. "Yesterday Mike forgot my prenatal appointment. I told him the baby's heartbeat was fast. He replied with just "mm." I asked if he was working too much. He said, "You have been unstable at work and he's helping you." I don't know what's real anymore. I froze. My palms tightened. "I just want to confirm one thing." Her voice trembled. "Is he with someone else right now?" I didn't nod. I didn't shake my head. I simply placed the slip of paper from my coat pocket onto her coffee table. The paper listed the fabricated meeting name and hotel. Claire stared at it like it was some unremarkable receipt. She picked it up, examined it for a few seconds, then whispered, "He doesn't even bother changing his lies anymore." She folded the paper and set it aside. No anger, just the quiet worn-down calm that comes after being scraped raw too many times. "Are you hungry?" she suddenly asked. I blinked. She was already walking to the kitchen. "I'll make some coffee." "Sit." Her back was steady, but slow, like every step required care. I sat by the sofa and watched her pour water, scoop coffee grounds, move quietly around the kitchen. The living room was silent except for the kettle heating. This silence wasn't peace. It was the sound of someone trying very hard not to fall apart. A few minutes later, she returned with 2 cups of coffee. Her hand shook a little as she set mine down. When she sat, she suddenly asked, "Andrew, have you ever wondered why he thinks he can treat me like this?" I looked at her. She continued, eyes fixed on the folded slip of paper. "Because he knows you won't oppose him. He knows someone will clean up after him." She said it calmly, no accusation, just fact. Her gaze didn't leave the paper. "I don't care whether he's in Portland or not. I don't even want to know. I just want to know, am I alone?" She looked at me. "Can you stop letting me be alone?" There was no crying in her voice, no trembling. Just sincerity so raw that any lie would feel filthy in comparison. I nodded. Claire lowered her head, lifted her cup, and the rim tapped lightly against the saucer because her hand was shaking. She angled her face slightly away, trying to hide her tears. But I still saw one drop slide across her knuckle. She acted as if she didn't notice, set the cup down softly, and whispered, "Thank you for coming." Steam rose from the coffee, thin and fragile, pulling the silence in the room even tighter. In that quiet living room, where even breathing seemed loud, it became clear. She already knew the direction she needed to go. She just needed someone who wouldn't let her walk it alone. I touched the edge of the slip of paper, the stiffness of it like a reminder. I didn't make promises. Didn't take sides. Just pushed the paper gently toward her. Claire saw the movement and didn't speak. A gust of wind rattled the windowpane. She picked up the slip and tucked it into her pocket. A small action. But it changed the air in the room entirely. My relationship with Claire shifted that night. Permanently. On Wednesday evening, after work, he showed up at my door. His gray shirt was so wrinkled it had lost its original color, like he had rushed over without preparing anything. Hands shoved in his pockets, he lifted his chin when he saw me. "Why aren't you answering my messages?" I unlocked my door without looking at him. "You mean the one that said, 'Bro, save me one more time'?" He inhaled sharply and followed me inside. "I know I put you in a tough spot. But you have to understand, relationship stuff is complicated. Saying it out loud only makes things worse for everyone." I tossed my keys onto the table, turned off the lights, leaving only the kitchen light on. "The only person who ends up worse is Claire," I said. "Not me." Mike leaned against the refrigerator, arms crossed, using that reasonable tone he always used to talk others down. "I'll handle it." "And what's your way of handling it?" I sat down. "Getting me to lie for you again?" He stared at me, and after a few seconds, he switched to a half-joking tone. "Man, I know you hate it when I ask, but we've been friends for over 10 years. Can't you help me just this once?" I looked at his sense of entitlement and stayed silent for a long time. He assumed I was hesitating. So he took another step closer. "I promise this is the last time. I really can't hold on much longer." "The last time you promised me has been repeated since college," I said evenly. "When you lent me $2,000 to get me out of a bind, that was supposed to be the last time. When you had me explain to your mom why you failed an exam, that was supposed to be the last time. Now you're lying to Claire, and you want me to cover for you, again claiming it's the last time." He froze for a few seconds, as if suddenly realizing I had kept a mental tally. But he didn't give up. His voice softened slightly. "So what do you want me to do?" "I don't want anything," I said, standing up and tossing his coat from the armrest to him. "I won't take the fall for anyone. Especially not this kind of mess." Ryan looked at the coat as it fell to the floor, his expression darkening. When he bent down to pick it up, his fingers trembled slightly, but he quickly suppressed it and slung the coat over his shoulder. "You're being unreasonable," he said. I stood under the kitchen light. The glow cut the air between us in half. Being reasonable shouldn't come at the cost of lies. He stared at me for 2 seconds, then smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You've changed. So have you." He straightened, his steps sharp on the wooden floor as he headed for the door. When he paused at the handle, it felt like a parting strike. "You better not tell Claire. She trusts you so much right now. If you make her upset, the consequences won't be what you expect." I looked up. "Are you threatening me?" "A reminder," he said. "You know her type, her reactions often exceed what you can imagine." I didn't answer. The door closed behind him, and the room fell completely silent. 2 days later, Claire asked me out for coffee. She was meticulous as always, booking a table by the window, placing her cup on the right side and her phone screen down on the left. The first thing she asked after sitting down, "Has Ryan told you anything?" I picked up my coffee cup. "Which aspect do you want to know about?" "He's been off lately," she said, tapping her fingers on the table. "Yesterday when I got home, he lost his temper, yelling at me that I keep interfering in his life. I didn't even know what he was talking about." I looked at her. Her eyes showed the look of someone who wanted the truth but feared what would come with it. But she didn't push me. She exhaled and tucked her hair behind her ear. "You know, I used to think Ryan was the kind of person who needed care, understanding. Now I'm starting to wonder if that was just an illusion." "Illusions don't appear out of thin air," I said. She looked at me. "Would you tell me what you know?" I was about to speak when her phone vibrated. She glanced at it, and her expression changed instantly. She handed it to me. "He said you agreed to help him." I took the phone. On the screen was only a short message. "He already understands what I meant. You don't need to worry. Signed, Ryan." Claire stared at me, her voice soft. "You really agreed?" I handed her back the phone. "That wasn't me." She froze. "Then who was it?" I didn't answer. Her hands slowly lowered, as if connecting all the dots in a single line. She leaned back in her chair, silent for a long moment. Finally, she whispered, "What exactly is he trying to cover up with you?" I didn't answer directly. I asked, "Are you ready to hear it?" She bit her lip, gripping the cup tightly. "If I weren't ready, I wouldn't have come to you." I nodded. "Tell me everything you noticed first." What she shared was more than I expected and more detailed than I had heard. She had already noticed Ryan's odd phone behavior, late-night returns, gaps in message records, but she had dismissed it with thoughts of work stress or friends' gatherings. When she finished, she looked up at me. "Everything I suspected, you already knew, right?" I nodded. She drew a deep breath, finally confirming something that had been suspended for too long. Then I want to hear it from you, what he actually did. I leaned forward, fingers drumming on the table, voice low. Do you want the full story? Her gaze steadied. I want to know everything. The cafe light reflected in her eyes, dazzling and sharp. I set my cup down. Okay. I'll tell you everything. That day, we talked for over an hour. She neither cried nor shouted. She just listened quietly. I spoke slowly, each word deliberate, without exaggeration or embellishment. When I finished, she simply placed her hands together on the table. Thank you, she said. Those words were light, yet they felt like lifting a heavy weight that had been pressing down for a long time. She stood, her expression so calm it almost hid her emotions. I need to process my feelings. We'll talk later. She left the cafe, and the wind rushed in, slamming the door behind her with a harsh sound. I stayed seated, unmoving, feeling no relief. But after that day, some previously blurry boundaries began to clarify. Especially when I stepped out of the cafe and saw another message from Ryan. You told her what? Followed by a missed call. And another. I stood on the sidewalk, staring at the screen as his name flashed. I answered the phone. What did you say? His voice was tense. Are you insane? I leaned against the railing, voice steady. I just answered her questions. You're destroying me. You think you're helping her? Did you think about the consequences? You're ruining her life. I'm not the one destroying her life, I said. He went silent for 3 seconds, then said through clenched teeth, You owe me. I just returned it, I replied. He froze, as if finally realizing this was no longer the familiar dynamic where, I compromise, he gets through. The electricity in his breath trembled with suppressed anger. You better hope she doesn't do something reckless, he said. Or you'll regret it. I hung up. The wind blew down the street, cold and sharp. Some things, from that moment, could never go back to how they were. And Ryan finally began to realize he couldn't control the situation anymore. Ryan's call came Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. He usually spoke slowly and deliberately, but that day his voice trembled. We should still leave together, right? I've packed my things. He tried to sound natural, but I could hear the faint panic beneath it. I'm not going today, I said. There was a 2-second pause on the other end. What do you mean? I stopped by the office window, watching the people below. You have your meeting, right? Stick to the original plan. You can't change your mind now, he said, his voice lowering, carrying that familiar threat. You said I don't need to worry about anything. You've already told Claire the schedule, she won't ask me. He paused for a few seconds. You haven't told her anything, right? You ask too often, I replied. His face went pale. You're trying to ruin me, aren't you? This question finally exposed his true panic. I walked toward him, closing the office door behind me. Ryan, given everything you've done over the years, haven't you already earned the right to be ruined? So you admit you told her? He stepped back, as if stabbed. I didn't answer. He panted harder, suddenly grabbing my arm. Andrew, I beg you, just smooth things over. Tell her you got confused, that you misunderstood, that you were under stress. She'll believe it if you say that. I stared at his hand on my arm. Since when have I ever spoken like that? He had no reply and had to let go. He really was panicking. She's going to leave me. He admitted it suddenly, like finally confessing what he feared most. She put her luggage by the door. She said she'll stay at her sister's for a few days. I stayed silent. You know she's pregnant with my child, right? You know I can't lose her. I haven't been entirely bad to her over the years, he said. I watched him pace the room. Even he didn't believe what he was saying. 2 minutes later, he finally stopped, slumping into a near-resigned tone. If you don't help me, I'll tell her you're jealous of our family happiness, that you deliberately tried to cause trouble. You have a bad life, everything goes wrong, you'll see. I looked up. Still threatening me? He spoke faster, unable to control his emotions. I'll tell her you like her, one sentence from me and she won't believe a word you say. I stood straight. Do you want to try? He froze for a second, finally realizing what he had said. His voice trembled more. Andrew, we've been brothers for so long. You can't do this to me. I walked to the door, pulling it open. Seattle flight, 7:30. Don't be late. He widened his eyes. What do you mean? You always wanted to go, right? I won't stop you. He stood still, frozen. Andrew, what exactly did you do?" I didn't answer. That evening, Claire sent me a message. "He just landed. The lawyer is waiting for him outside the airport." Followed by a second message. "Thanks." Only 3 words. I replied, "You don't need to thank me." She sent another. "I'm home." I changed the locks. I sat in the car, watching each message flash by, the streetlights flickering outside. 10 minutes later, Ryan called. He nearly screamed, "You two planned this. Did you tell her what? Why is her lawyer at the airport? What are you trying to do?" I put the phone slightly away. Claire made her own decision. She knows everything. "You're framing me," he yelled. "Why would you hurt me?" I leaned back in the seat, voice calm. "I didn't hurt you, Ryan. I just let what you did expose itself." He was silent for 2 seconds, finally realizing the truth. He had neatly left all the evidence in his own life. His hoarse voice asked, Why help her and not me?" "You figure it out yourself," I said. Footsteps echoed at the airport as he paced, his breathing erratic. "I'm begging you, just tell her one thing, make her calm. Just one thing. Don't sue me, don't leave me. Please." This was true pleading. Not a performance. Not for show. For the first time, he realized, people he once trampled could put him down. I asked, "Where are you now?" I'm in the airport parking lot. Someone's following me." His voice shook violently. "She really wants a divorce. I'm finished." "You always said you could handle everything," I said. He was silent for a long while. "I know I messed up back then. I really was wrong." I didn't respond. His voice got smaller. "I'm not a good husband, I know. But I didn't think it would come to this." "I guess you didn't expect to beg me one day either," I said. He was speechless. Only wind and his ragged breathing filled the line. After several seconds, he finally spoke. "Can you, at least tell me what to do?" "Go home," I said. "Face everything you've done." The line went quiet. He sounded empty, sucking in air. Finally, hoarsely, "If I go home, she won't let me in. Then sit outside the door. Didn't you always say she'd never leave you? Try it now." He paused, then said, "Andrew. I'm scared." For the first time in the 10 years I'd known him, he admitted fear. I didn't respond. I let the words hang in the air like a mirror, reflecting all his arrogance, deceit, confidence, and control over the years. Finally, I said the last sentence. "Fear is yours, not mine." I hung up and placed the phone on the passenger seat. 3 days later, Claire officially filed for divorce. Ryan didn't return to the office. Rumors said he stayed at a friend's place. Someone saw him standing in a supermarket aisle for an hour, dazed. Others said he cried on the phone, begging Claire for another chance. None of this involved me. I focused on my projects, signing new contracts, attending meetings, clear, steady, orderly. At dusk, my phone buzzed. It was Claire. "The paperwork is almost done. Thanks for helping me get out of that life with him." I replied, "You didn't leave. You returned to yourself." She didn't respond. I sat in the parking lot, starting the engine, watching the sunset slowly sink in the rearview mirror. It was over. No drama, no exaggeration. Only someone finally held accountable for their actions. Only someone no longer manipulated or threatened. And someone else had pulled themselves out of long-term control, standing upright again. Ryan never reached out to me again. Later, I heard that in front of the lawyer, his hands shook so badly he could barely hold a pen.